Hey guys, and welcome to Take 5. Since it's spooky season, this week we're doing top 5 horror movies. I'm your host, Nate Richard.
I'm Anastasia Scott.
And I'm Devin Sticka.
And let's just begin now. All right, do you want to go first?
Sure. My pick 5 was It, mostly just because that movie scared the living creeps out of me. Not because it was made poorly or anything, but I based my whole list off of what scared me the most as the worst up to what I could actually watch without being too scared. So It was definitely number 5. That movie was the first scary movie I had seen since I was a kid. So I had a lot of issues with it afterwards, and Pennywise's laugh was the worst part for me. I can't do it. I can't deal.
My number 5 is Oculus. It's a really good film. It's got Karen Gillan and Brenton Thwaites in it, and it's kind of a psychological thriller kind of thing, and which is one of my favorite kind of. I guess it's not technically psychological thriller, but psychological horror technically. But it's got supernatural elements, which personally I find supernatural stuff way spookier than any kind of real life kind of thing. So that one really scared the crap out of me. But I just think I wouldn't call them gags, but things that because it was very oh, look at this, but this also means this. And you kind of got confused, but at the same time you were able to keep up with it. It would trick you, I guess. And I really, really enjoyed that.
Oh, my number 5,
Number
since
5.
Steven Spielberg is my Lord and Savior, I had to put down Poltergeist, which I know some may say it's Tobe Hooper's, but if you read about the set, it was definitely Steven Spielberg's movie. So this movie, it's surprising it's actually rated PG.
I did not know that.
And this movie, it's old. It was made in 1982, but it still holds up very well today. Poltergeist, it's not the most original movie, but I think bringing the haunted house, instead of making it ancient and everything, bringing it to the suburbs, I think was an original twist.
Yeah.
The genre. I really enjoyed that movie.
My number 4 is Insidious, and this one's number 4 because I thought it was kind of poorly made. I thought there could have been a lot of parts that could have been a lot scarier. This one did not scare me very much at all. But I did like how they brought in the whole concept of astral projection into it and then added demons and stuff into it. I thought that was pretty cool. But they could have made everything so much better. I feel like even the man with fire on his face could have been way scarier looking. He didn't scare me at all. His eyes were a little creepy, but that was about it. And then I just thought parts of it were kind of annoying. Some of it just didn't make sense. They could have just done this, I don't know. I think they could have done that one a lot better.
My number 4 is It Chapter 1, the 2017 version. I loved it. Apparently you were terrified by it, but I thought it was great. I am all for the 80s aesthetic. So anything with that kind of time period is really good for me. And then it's kind of a psychological horror in itself as well, which I very much enjoy. And the kid cast is so good. I thought that it was a very good horror film in the fact that it was not just a horror film, it was also a coming of age movie. Yes. So I appreciate anything that's not just all blood and guts and jump scares, and it definitely wasn't. It had a story along with it, which I very much appreciated.
My number 4 on my list is Halloween, the original, the 1978 movie. So this movie, I had just seen it last year, and it was a movie that my roommate was like, how have you not seen Halloween? He was kind of ragging on me for it. So on Halloween night, we just basically stayed in the dorm room and we watched Halloween. Yeah. And this movie, it's a little dated, I'll say that, but it still holds up mostly. And I think Laurie Strode is probably the best final girl ever in a movie. She's the most iconic. I really like Michael Myers, that character. There's a lot of mythos around him. You don't know his actual motives for killing, and I enjoy that more than Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. Right. And he's just a creepy dude. And the score to that movie, John Carpenter's score, is probably the most iconic horror movie score ever.
My number 3 was actually The Conjuring. I thought that one was really good. It was the first one I had seen in that whole series that they're making right now. And I mean, I just think this is definitely one of James Wan's better movies, because after seeing Insidious and then thinking back to The Conjuring, I was like, wow, he did a lot better with this one. And I thought that like the jump scares were better and the graphics were better. Everything was just so much, I don't know, better. So that has to be my number 3.
I remember when that movie came out and everybody just lost it because it was like, they were like, oh yeah, it doesn't have any music, so you don't know like when something bad's gonna happen, and it's super scary and all this. And I remember finally getting to see it like after months, and I was like, this actually lives up to my expectations. This is not bad.
Yeah.
I was late to the train on The Conjuring. I saw the first one right before I saw the second one. And mostly because my parents were super protective over me with this kind of stuff. But it freaked me out. And I think jump scares, they don't work a lot in horror movies. I think they're kind of cheap. But what James Wan does with that movie makes it, I think, really effective. And it's earned.
My number 3 is The Descent, if you've ever heard of that one. Okay, The Descent is about these, I can't remember how many ladies, but it's quite a group. Most of them are friends, and they kind of do this like bonding kind of thing where they go cave exploring. And their main girl who is like, hey, let's go to this one. And it turns out it's not like a registered cave system, and they get trapped. And it's like really creepy because it's super dark, and so they have to use like the night vision cameras a lot. And I don't want to spoil anything, but like a lot happens, and I really like the ensemble. Like, I'm a big ensemble person. If like a good group of actors comes together and like they have good chemistry and they all like are solid, like that makes the movie for me. Like the rest of the movie could be crap, but give me a good ensemble and I'm just like, I'm there for it. I will admit I was freaked out for a little bit after seeing it. And I mean, I know I'm never gonna go cave diving after seeing that, but it's just like, just the cast in general. Like, I think that was the best part of the movie. But I just think like everyone needs to see it because it's not really talked about. It's like, I feel like horror people really like it, and I'm not saying I'm a horror person. I just recently started getting into horror movies. But I think if you like really are starting to get into horror movies, you need to watch it.
My number 3, my sister would kill me if I didn't have this on my list, and it's not through and through a horror movie, it's more of a horror comedy, but it's Gremlins.
Okay.
I love this movie to death. It's more, I know it's kind of more of a Christmas movie than a Halloween movie, because that movie really gives me the Christmas feeling for some odd reason.
I mean, it's during Christmas.
Yeah, but just like the opening credits of the town and everything. But Gizmo is like one of my favorite movie characters of all time. I love him. He's adorable. I just want a pet Gizmo. And I just think the movie's so funny. It's really creative with its concept. It really drew like a big influence on everything that came after.
Right.
And I remember Jimmy Neutron did like a parody episode, and that's kind of how I first heard of Gremlins. Then when I first saw like a picture of Gizmo, I thought it was a live action Furby. So
I thought it was kind of like a weird live action Furby kind of thing too. Mostly because I had like 5 Furby dolls when I was a kid, and so after seeing that movie, I was like, kind of weirded out by them after that. But it's a good one.
I did like that one.
All right, my number 2 is Annabelle Creation. I really liked this one just because the storyline was really good, and then I liked how towards the end, it went from being a porcelain doll to the actual Raggedy Ann doll that the whole series is based off of. I thought that was really clever how they did that, and then how it rolls into like several other things that just popped up afterwards. But I really like watching movies in the order that they're supposed to be. I don't like it when movies are released out of order. So the fact that this movie was released after The Nun and Annabelle and The Conjuring and like all of that, when it was supposed to be like the second one, is just like really weird to me. I think they should have definitely released them out of order. And then, I mean, that's just like how it makes sense, right? Like you release movies in order. But so that was the only problem I had with that whole series so far. Otherwise, those movies have been great, although I have not seen Annabelle yet because people have told me, oh, it's not very good, don't mess with it.
It's really bad.
Okay.
But I'll probably watch it soon just because I want that storyline.
We're gonna go to my number 2, which is Scream. The very first Scream, which is one of my favorites just because it's almost a parody. No, it is a parody of like slasher flicks. But it also is still a horror film in itself. It like makes fun of itself and it doesn't take itself seriously, which I really enjoy because it plays on the tropes. Like one of the characters even is listing off tropes that happen in horror movies, and then they happen, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. And also, it's from the early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s.
And I recently watched it, and I didn't know who the antagonist was in the end, which I was really impressed with the fact that that secret was kept.
So my number 2 is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I think this is by far the best Stephen King adaptation there's ever been. I think everything down from the performances, like Jack Nicholson freaks me out now in every movie I watch him in. Like, not too long after I watched The Shining, I watched The Departed, and I still just expected Jack Nicholson's character in that to just get an axe and murder everybody. I have a deep distrust of Jack Nicholson now because of that movie. But the hotel, the atmosphere of that movie, especially like the tricycle scene.
Oh yeah, that's a good scene.
It's iconic, and everything about that movie. It was made, I don't know what
80s?
year, I think 80s or late 70s, but it still freaks me the hell out. It's terrifying.
My number 1 is The Blair Witch. I thought this one, and people are going to hate me for saying this, but I thought it was better than The Blair Witch Project because it made you feel like you were actually there with the different kinds of cameras they used. The other one I felt like I was watching a documentary and it kind of bored me a little bit. I feel like it wasn't as good because of the fact that I wasn't scared hardly at all by it. In fact, I don't remember jumping at all during it. But with the other one, I jumped a lot and things happened faster, which made it more intriguing, and it kind of gave you like this anxious feeling and you were like, oh my God, what's gonna happen next? And then I also loved how they were able to use the same exact house from the first one because it hadn't been destroyed yet. And then I also just felt like with the different camera angles, it felt like you were there in Burkittsville, Maryland with them, and it was just like, I don't know, I thought it was better because you felt like you were there.
My first one is Crimson Peak by the great Guillermo del Toro. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a really solid Victorian era haunted house ghost kind of movie. A lot of times we get that Victorian era in supernatural movies, but it's always just the ghosts. It's always, oh, this is from this era and now we're in the present. But I thought it was really cool to see the Victorian era as the central point, and then we get to see the scariness of the ghosts being just like that's their era, kind of thing. And the movie in general I just thought was really eerie, and you kept guessing as to what was going to happen next.
My number 1, I think everyone has seen this coming, as Steven Spielberg is my Lord and Savior, and that is Jaws. This movie's amazing. Steven Spielberg, this is his best film, and he is God. So everything about this movie, from the performances, from all the practical effects used in this movie, just the filmmaking techniques, and the fact that we don't even see Jaws as much, but he's still super threatening. And it doesn't pull back.
Right.
In today's filmmaking, you wouldn't see like that kid die in that movie. But they do it then. I just think the movie holds up as a whole today. It's super scary. I remember I had watched it, the first time I watched it, I was a freshman in high school. Because my mom didn't let me watch it because she's like, oh, you're going to be scared of going into the beach now. And she kept on saying that. My dad really wanted to show my sister and I this movie, and the wait was worth it. I am kind of mad at myself for not having seen it sooner, but what can you do? It's a great horror movie.
It is.
It's not as much of a horror movie as maybe some of today's standards, because it's more of it's not supernatural, it's just a shark.
Right.
So that's it for this week's Take 5. I'm Nate Richard.
I'm Devin Stegga.
And I'm Anastasia Scott.
And we'll see you guys next time.